What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be talking about some of the best teams running around right now that you need to prepare for at the upcoming San Antonio Regionals, which is the last regional for regulationE. And most of you are not even playing the format anymore. You're getting ready to play the DLC later tonight, which is understandable, right? New content, it's totally fine. But some of you're heading down there to Texas. Okay, and you're heading down there to compete in this regionals, and what we're doing today is, of course, putting out a video just to make sure that you guys are best prepared for some of these teams and you're not caught by surprise. So this way you can walk out of there with some CP. All right, now we'll be talking about how some of these teams work, of course, but if you've been playing, in some of these online tours and playing in some of these other regionals, it's all leading up until this point. So what are some of these best teams that you're going to be expecting? That's what we're going to go over here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at archetype number 1. So it all starts here. This is, of course, the very standard cookie cutter Tailwind offense with Hisuian Arcanine, who is now a 7-time regional champion. Can he make it an 8? All right, it remains to be seen, but I haven't seen anything close to stopping this. Okay, and you're gonna see this team a lot. Like, a lot of people are gonna be using it, and for good reason, right? You got all this pressure with Tornadus giving you speed control, with Tailwind, combined well with Rain Dance and Urshifu Rapid Strike, which hits even harder in the rain. Of course, we already know this. And then at the same time, you have Fake Out Pressure with Rillaboom, Grassy Glide Priority. Then you have Gholdengo with Terra Dragon. And then to be able to go for Nasty Plot and make it rain is just such a devastating move. There's not a lot of switch into it, unless you have your own steel type, of course. But then if you do, you've got the Hisuian Arcanine waiting in the back. Choice Band Hisuian Arcanine, with Stab Rock Slide, Stab E-Speed, Stab Flare Blitz, and even Stab Head Smash does a ton of damage, can just pick up KOs right here and there. And then if that wasn't bad enough, you got Flutter Mane in the back looking to clean things up in the end game, right? So just standard choice spec set, with Dazzling Gleam, Moonblast, and Shadow Ball. And then that fourth move is always going to be up in the air. You're going to see something like this with Thunderbolt. You're going to see Power Gem. You're going to see maybe even Icy Wind for a little bit more speed control, or the Paris Song just to end games quickly, once they do pick up 2 KOs. It really just depends on the player and how they want to play the Flutter Mane and that fourth move slot. But this is pretty much it. You're going to see this a lot. So just be ready, and if you're also running this, be ready to play the mirror, right? Because, a lot of people are going to be using it. How are you going to play the Tornadus lead? Are you going to lead your own Tornadus, or are you going to play a little bit more balanced and a little bit more defensive by leading Rillaboom and then maybe something like Urshifu or Gholdengo for that matter? Are you going to lead an Intimidator like Arcanine with your own Gholdengo? It really just depends on how you want to play your mirror. I'm sure many of you have your own game plan, but like I always said, if this is a common archetype, be prepared to play the mirror, okay? So this is one variation of that patented Tailwind offense. Then you'll also see something like this, where instead of the, Flutter Mane, you'll still keep the Gholdengo, but then you'll have the Chien-Pao in its place. And, the Chien-Pao is just going to enable the Urshifu, Rillaboom, and the Arcanine to do even more damage. And now you add another strong physical attacker onto the team with another priority, right? So this is basically the priority boards here with Urshifu, Rillaboom, Arcanine. And now you add Chien-Pao here, making everything hit harder. And then Gholdengo still doing the same Gholdengo stuff, with Terra Dragon, make it rain, Nasty Plot. It's just very, very hard to switch into. And then now some people are doing, it's like choice specs Gholdengo, with Steel Beam and then Terra Steel, right? So like Terra Steel Make It Rain is going to do a ton of damage. Immediate pressure, not having to wait to set up that Nasty Plot. And then everything else is just relatively standard. Sometimes you'll see the Mystic Water on this Urshifu. Sometimes you'll see the Choice Scarf. So just be aware, right? Because if the Urshifu has that Choice Scarf, they're going to be faster, but their damage is going to be a little bit nerfed, right? But you still have Rain Dance here to worry about, and of course Terra Water. So are you really missing out on damage? It remains to be seen. Okay, and then they'll always have this pivot move with U-turn and stuff like that. So just be ready to deal with this. And then another variation is just this Landorus Incarnate variance, right? Where now you have the double Genie combination with Tornadus and Landorus. And if this has Rain Dance, this is going to have Sandsear Storm. And Sandsear Storm in the rain is 100% accurate. And, Life Orb, Sheer Force, Sandsear Storm is basically a special form of Precipice Blades that doesn't miss in the rain. Like, that is insane, okay? And it's going to do a ton of damage, and you're going to need some flying types to, like, not get hit by this ground move. okay, or at least have some resist. But like even with the resist, Landorus is just doing so much damage, right? It's not very bulky, so you know if you can hit it hard with something like a Flutter Mane or even an Urshifu and pressure it, then you got something going for you. But again, just be prepared to play like these three variants, either the Lando Eye variant, you know, a Flutter Mane variant, or a Chien-Pao variant. I feel like that last 6 slot is always up for grabs depending on the player, but this is what you're going to be going up against. Sticking with the same theme, you know, with the Tornadus Tailwind offense idea, now you'll also have to deal with Brambleghast. And this is picking up in popularity the last week and a half or so. Brambleghast is a good Pokemon, okay? You know, Shadow Sneak and Poltergeist are really, really good against Gholdengo and Flutter Mane if they don't Terra. And then at the same time, you have Wind Rider, which is great, you know, with your own Tailwind. You're going to get a nice little boost. You're going to deal more damage. And it's also, you know, good to catch, you know, opposing Heat waves, icy winds, you know, from opposing Pokemon, you know, that kind of thing. You're gonna have some good benefit, and then just keeping this Focus Sash, and then you might even see something like Strength Sap here, just to be able to get recovery over time, right? You know, that's also a very, very good move. So just be aware of this, and then everything else is still like relatively standard, what we covered, you know, in the previous section of the video with the other standard Tailwind offense. But here you have the Ogerpon here, right? And you have a Redirector now. And that kind of changes the game a little bit, because now what you're able to do is keep some of these hard hitters safe, okay? You can set up your Gholdengo a little bit easier. You can protect your Landorus, you know, and just deal damage. And then at the same time, it's pretty good into the mirror because you have an opposing Urshifu just trying to KO, you know, potentially your Landorus and that kind of thing. So just having an Ogerpon along with Rain Dance, along with this Urshifu, is going to do a lot of good damage. So just be aware of that. But another variant is the 45 Mice variant, you know, with the Iron Bundle. This is what we used in the video, and it was really, really good, you know, because if you're playing the mirror, right, you need some advantage for the speed control, right? And Iron Bundle does that for you because with Booster Energy and Icy Wind, you're able to slow down their Tornadus and their partner. So this way, your Tornadus with your Tailwind is just going to enable your Pokemon to have the speed advantage on your side. And when you have the speed advantage, you have the pressure advantage. So Iron Bundle can do that here, and then everything else is just relatively the same with Gholdengo, Urshifu, and the Landorus here, along with this Brambleghast, right? So this one is the Strength Sap variant, you know, on this particular team. So it really just depends on who's playing it. Some Brambleghasts have Strength Sap with Protect or no Protect, but others, you know, do not have Strength Sap at all. It just all depends on how they want to play it. But Brambleghast Tailwind offense archetype is very, very good. So be expected to see that as well in San Antonio. This one, the Salamence Balance variant, this one is on a huge uptick as of late. You look at all the online Limitless tours, you're going to find some variants of this team. If you look at the last few regionals from Stuttgart, and then the one before it, which I can't quite remember off the top. Gdansk, right? You'll see this as well. So, you know, Salamence, very, very good Intimidator right now. You know, it started to rise towards the middle part of the regulationE format, and now it's pretty much a mainstay. So the whole idea with Salamence is that you have a special attacker with Intimidate that can also give you Tailwind, which is something that Landorus or Hisuian Arcanine can't give you, right? So this way, now you can't get intimidated either because you're not a physical attacker. You have longevity with Roost, along with Rocky Helmet, so you're able to deal physical chip damage back. All right, and then at the same time, you know, again, Dragon, Fairy, Steel, Fire, Water, Grass core. Your two dominant VGC cores. You're going to see the Salamence, Flutter Mane, Kingambit variant. And, you know, Sucker Punch King variant. Sucker Punch Kingambit is quite strong, especially with this Black Glasses. Really good into the Tailwind offense mirror because, you know, even if they go for the Tailwind, you just KO things with +2 Sucker Punches. All right, and, you know, until the cows come home. Then you have the standard Rillaboom stuff here. Now, with Ogerpon here, now you get another Redirector, so you can set up your Tailwind, you can set up your Swords Dance, okay? And then at the same time, look, you got Heatran here trapping things with Magma Storm, all right? So this way, you can force opponents to be out of position because they can't position themselves either. So just be aware of this. Salamence leads plus Flutter Mane can be a little bit interesting, you know, especially if they just go for Tailwind and choice specs, whatever. Okay, and then at the same time, Ogerpon, you know, with the Kingambit, setting up the Swords Dance. Rillaboom, Kingambit, fake out Swords Dance setup is also another idea. And Heatran is really good into some of those Psyspam teams, especially with Torkoal, just because of Flash Fire being able to take some of those fire type attacks. All right, and then Rillaboom comes in and removes the Indeedee terrain, and then all of a sudden Heatran is kind of chilling there. So just be aware of that. And the benefit of Salamence here is that it's really good into the Ogre Ponds. It's really good into Urshifu Rapid Strike. Urshifu Rapid Strike has a hard time dealing with Salamence just because it walls both of its stab moves with the fighting and the water type attacks because of your flying dragon typing. And then Terra Dragon Kingambit is very, very nice. You know, this is what we had with Neil when Neil was using Kingambit with that Terra Dragon idea. So, you know, it makes your fighting weakness neutral, and then, you know, the fire weakness is resisted, and then everything else, same thing, right? It just gets resisted. Your only main problem is ice and fairy types, which you have enough to deal with your rest of the team. All right, so be on the lookout for Salamence Balance. It's a very popular archetype right now, and if you want to use it yourself, go right ahead and be ready to play the mirror. Next up, be prepared to deal with some Weezing teams. So Weezing is actually a very, very good Pokemon in regulationE. It has a good niche right now. And of course, you know the patented Wolf Glick run when he won that tournament with it. And, you know, again, the whole benefit is that you're able to turn off abilities. And that's very crippling to a lot of Pokemon, especially, you know, if they have Intimidate. The fact that they don't have that tool to use against you is huge, right? And, you know, Roaring Moon and Floodmane are perfect partners because Protosynthesis doesn't really care about it, and an Iron Hands never had an ability to begin with, so all the more reason to put it on a Weezing team, and this is another successful idea. And, you know, this Landorus can either have an ability shield or still the Choice Scarf item, you know, still being able to, you know, just have good speed for your squad in general, and then, of course, slap on an Ogre Pond here with Swords Dance, and then, you know, you have a nice Pokemon that can pressure a lot of different things in the format. So what you want to do sometimes with your EV spreads, if you're going to use Roaring Moon Weezing, is invest enough to outspeed the Tornadus, right? So what you want to do is you can go for your Tailwind, and then, you know, the Prankster ability from Tornadus doesn't work. So now your Weezing is going to outspeed it with 76 investment. It's going to outspeed that Tornadus, and then you can go for the taunt. So now they don't get to click Tailwind. And then after that, in turn 2, you have all the speed advantage because you're the one with Tailwind, and they're the ones without it. So that's one idea. And then after that, look, it's Landorus, Iron Hands here, Intimidate, Fake Out. And then you have the Ogre Pond here trying to, you know, set up here. Sometimes you could even put Follow Me for redirection. And then, you know, Fluttermane with Choice Specs is just doing so much damage here. You might as well slap it on here. You know, when in doubt, put on a Fluttermane and then, you know, just deal damage with it. But anyway, Roaring Moon, Weezing teams, you know, again, they're going to be playing very balanced, very positional based because they're trying to keep the Weezing alive as much as possible to get the benefit off of that. Sometimes you'll see like Weezing Landorus leads and then they'll switch out the Weezing so this way they can get the Intimidate in and then bring something else out besides the Weezing and preserve it, you know, in the end game and that kind of idea, right? So, you know, just be prepared against this. You know, Weezing teams are crafty teams, okay? You know, especially in some of their turn-based positional play, so just be on the lookout. Cresselia Ursaluna teams with Iron Hands are still very, very good, especially, you know, physical Ursaluna. It's the perfect partner to it, right? You know, the fact that you can Earthquake next to your Trick Room setter is a blessing in this format, right? And Ursaluna has been a mainstay for a while. Now, again, you know, it just all depends on the set that they want to run, but of course, you're going to get Trick Room, you're going to get Lunar Blessing, and then the Ice move for something like Landorus, just in case they want to use that against your own Ursaluna to intimidate it, which is something that you should do anyway, because it's the physical variant. But of course, you know, that's one way to deal with it, right? If you have an Intimidator like Landorus, that's going to be good in terms of mitigating its damage. But this is why some Ursalunas have, you know, either Bulk Up or Swords Dance here. So this way they can kind of mitigate that and re-exert the pressure right back at you. So just be aware of that. Now, again, you have the Iron Hands here for fake out pressure, which is good. And then the Iron Hands can also be a Trick Room setter because, again, you know, base 140 attack is actually very, very good. And then after that, it's just relatively balanced with, you know, Fluttermane and Urshifu here. You know, you get a nice little fire-water combination here with Urshifu going for Surging Strikes. You know, Iron Hands Urshifu, you know, fake out Surging Strikes is always pretty good. And then the Heatran with a Life Orb set here is going to do a ton of damage. So, you know, you got some special attack damage here with Flutter, Heatran, Crest with the support, and strong physical attackers with Iron Hands and the Urshifu, right? I call this a double bear idea, you know, with Urshifu and then the Ursaluna. So, you know, might as well go with it. But this is my favorite variant of Cresselia Ursaluna, just like this balanced idea with Iron Hands and then Fluttermane and Urshifu to round things out. Sometimes you might even see like the Ogre Pond on teams like this, but I think that's best suited for the other kind of Ursaluna, the Blood Moon variant. But again, you know, just stall their Trick Room out. If you got Substitute, that's great. If you alternate your Protects, that's good as well. You know, if you got fake out pressure with your Rillaboom and your own Iron Hands, that's going to be good at stalling out Trick Room. If you can taunt the Cresselia, that'd be good, you know, just to deny it. Okay, but you know, many different ways to deal with Trick Room, even if you can't really stop it. You know, you just have to know how to play within it, and then on the final turn, make sure you try and kill the Trick Room Setter, so this way they can't get it back up for a second time. All right, so moving on. Dragonite Chien-Pao is always going to be a thing, and it has been for many, many months, and it's still a thing now, even as we approach the end of Regulation E. So their secret weapon is, of course, the Farigiraf, because this way you get to deny opposing priority against your bonds, right? And then you can also deny Trick Room here, because you can either flip it, or sometimes they may even go for Imprison over here as opposed to Helping Hand. It just really all depends on how they want to play the Farigiraf, right? But you already know what you're getting with Dragonite Chien-Pao, so I'm not really going to explain these two. And you already know what you're getting with Chien-Pao, Rillaboom, and Urshifu, so that's pretty standard. And then now all of a sudden you add Heatran here with the Assault Vest, you know, making it super bulky and allowing you to have a good play against something like a Fluttermane or a Gholdengo, both of which can deal with, you know, Chien-Pao and Dragonite relatively decently, right? I would say. So, you know, all the more reason to have an Assault Vest Heatran to be able to take those special attacks and then be able to KO them right back with stuff like Heat Wave or Flash Cannon, for example, right? But again, Fake Out Pressure with Surging Strikes is always going to be a nice little tool. Helping Hand with a lot of these Pokemon is just going to do so much. You know, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 Pokemon with priority. So, you know, just being able to click Helping Hand, you know, for Grassy Glides and then, you know, Surging Strikes is just too much sometimes for the opponent to deal with. And then Dragonite Outrage, unless you have a Fairy type, you know, things are not going to be wanting to be taking this. Okay, it's a really, really strong attack. So just be aware on this archetype. Don't be surprised if you see it. It's been popular for, you know, about a month now, so just be expected. All right, next up is Neil's team. You know, we just featured it on the channel a couple days ago. It's relatively balanced, right? You know, with Kingambit. Then you have Intimidate, Fake Out, Redirection support with the Amoonguss. You know, and with these two, you have something to play within that Trick Room matchup. And then just being able to spore things and set up your Swords Dances is a luxury, right? And then at the same time, you know, if you take damage, you can just switch this out, get some health back, switch something else in, and then just reposition from there. But Kingambit priority Sucker Punches, you know, after Swords Dance is going to be very, very good. And then Terra Dragon, of course, just helps it a lot. We talked about it in this other team, right? But then after that, you know, Fluttermane with the Icy Wind is going to be good. Iron Hands here, we already talked about, is good, especially with like Volt Switch being able to re-pivot out. Okay, Heatran Substitute is always going to be one of my favorites because you just sit in front of Psyspam and take no damage, right? The turn they go for Trick Room, you set up Substitute, you know, you can click Protect next turn, and all of a sudden that's 2 Trick Room teams, Trick Room turns gone, right? And then they have to take the 3rd turn to break your Substitute, and then from there, you know, you can almost just set it up again or click Protect again, and then that's another turn of Trick Room stalled, and then of course the Amoonguss is just helping you spore things. So, you know, it's a well-balanced team. I like it a lot. You got a lot of good damage dealers here, but ultimately what it comes down to is sometimes, you know, the Kingambit can just beat you by itself, especially with like priority Sucker Punches. The Landorus is also good here, you know, because of Choice Scarf, you can outspeed Fluttermanes, click Stomping Tantrums, you know, and then Terra Blast, Terra Flying into Urshifus because you outspeed them anyway. They're forced to go Terra Water, but if they do that, they're at the mercy of, you know, an Iron Hands, you know, just being able to pressure with Wild Charge and stuff like that. So, you know, definitely be on the lookout of this. And then if you want to use it yourself, you already have our rental. Take a look, and it's also on Neil's channel because it is his team. He used it to win the tournament. So, yeah. Standard Roaring Moon Arcanine Gholdengo team. You know, this is a patented core, you know, throughout Regulation E. You have an Intimidator over here, and then that's going to be supporting the Roaring Moon very, very nicely because this physical defense isn't all that great. HP and special defense wise were good, but we need that physical damage reduction, and Arcanine does that right here. And, you know, you exert physical damage right back because you have Choice Band, of course, right? Then from here, the support from Roaring Moon is very good for this rest of the team. Breaking Swipe to neutralize those physical attackers, and then Tailwind support to make everything faster. This is usually a Jolly Roaring Moon, you know, as opposed to an Adamant, more aggressive set, but it depends on the player. But more commonly, this is a Jolly set. Then after that, you know, you already know what you're getting with your Urshifu and your Amoonguss and your Iron Hands. So you get a Redirection support, you get a Spore Pressure, and then you get Fake Out. And then, of course, Urshifu is just able to go for Surging Strikes after things have fallen asleep, right? And then your own Gholdengo with Life Orb here after the Amoonguss setup is very, very good. And then Gholdengo after Tailwind is also very, very good because now you have these hard-hitting Make It Rains. Okay, and then of course Terra Dragon is a boon, you know, against Ogre Pond players because they all their attacks just get resisted for the most part. So you can definitely do a lot here with this kind of team. You know, it's very, very standard, very balanced. If you want to pick up a quick Roaring Moon team, this would be the one I would recommend. Okay, if you're not going to be playing the Weezing variant, but yeah. Regidrago Tailwind offense. The same idea as some of the other Tailwind offense teams. You're going to see Gholdengo, you're going to see Tornadus, Arcanine, Rillaboom, Urshifu is your Fire, Water, Grass core, and now you exert extreme pressure with Dragon Energy Regidrago. Combo with Make It Rain, there is pretty much no switch in, because if you think about it, you know, Regidrago clicking Dragon Energy, the only thing that can not take any damage is a Fairy type, which also succumbs to Make It Rain. Now, the only thing that can wall you is something like a Heatran with a Steel type. But then again, if you look at whatever you have the Earth power for that Heatran. You have, you know, Rillaboom here with high horsepower. You have your own Urshifu as well. So you got ways to deal with Heatran in that sense. But again, the pressure with Tailwind, along with Surging Strikes, Rain Dance, is quite good. And then, of course, you already know what you're getting with, you know, Dragon Energy and, of course, Make It Rain over here. Metal Coat for more damage, of course. You might even see Terra Steel here. And then at the same time, you know, just go straight Choice Specs. But it really just depends on the player and how they want to play it. And then this is a support Arcanine, actually, you know, with something like Will-O-Wisp. So don't be surprised if you see support Arcanines with a Citrus Berry, you know, going for this Will-O-Wisp. We made this as one of our rentals, you know, in our Moltres team, except we used a Figgy Berry as opposed to a Citrus Berry because the berry was on the Moltres. But you can definitely see a lot of Arcanines play like this, just to be able to neutralize some of those physical attackers. So this way, Regidrago and Gholdengo are able to safely go for their attacks or even safely set up, right? So just be aware of this. It's a strong, hyper-aggressive Tailwind team, but if you can deal priority damage into the Regidrago, so this way Dragon Energy isn't hurting so much, that would be a very, very good to have, because sometimes if they don't have Indeedee or Farigiraf, that's your way around it. Don't be surprised if you run into Psyspam in San Antonio. It's, of course, one of the more popular archetypes right now, and you already know how it functions. Indeedee Armarouge in the back with Torkoal, and maybe even the Ursaluna as well. So you got a physical sweeper, you got a special sweeper in Trick Room, all right, and then you have the Redirector and the Trick Room setters, okay, Indeedee Armarouge being them. So Indeedee will go for the Follow Me, Armarouge will go for Trick Room, you kill the Indeedee, he brings in Torkoal, he brings in Ursaluna, they're going for, you know, eruption plays or big hitting facade plays, for example. So just be on the lookout for that. If you can stall Trick Room with substitute, you know, alternating protects, or if you have screens for mad damage mitigation, intimidate the physical Ursaluna. These are all different ways to help deal with stuff like this. If you're going against Torkoal, sometimes using Rain Dance with your Tornadus will neutralize some of the eruption damage that it's doing. Okay, and then don't forget, there's also a fast mode to this team. You know, with Hisui and Lilligant and Torkoal, there's not too much that you can do to stop after your eruption. You're gonna have to make some reads, and if you want to click Fake Out, you know, you do have to be aware that they do have Terra Ghost over here, so just be aware of that. And then, of course, a good Fake Out user on a Trick Room team to be able to set up said Trick Room. Now, you can't really use this, you know, if you're on the same team as Indeedee, but that's okay. You know, you just have to be conscious of that. But, you know, this is how those teams function. So just be aware, you know, having a dark type is going to help a lot. So if you got like Roaring Moon, if you got Kingambit, or even like a Moltres, for example, that's going to help a lot into Indeedee Armarouge, because they're the psychic move of Expanding Force is just not dealing damage, right? Because dark is able to neutralize psychic type attacks. So if you got that, that's going to be good. If you can flip their Trick Room with your own Trick Room user, that's going to be good as well. Otherwise, you know, changing Torkoal's weather and intimidating the Ursaluna is what you're going to be ending up doing as ways of mitigating the amount of pressure that they can exert. Staying within the Trick Room Ursaluna idea, we're going to go Blood Moon this time, and instead we're going to go with Dusclops. So Dusclops here going with Nightshade, Trick Room, Will-O-Wisp, Pain Split. So if they're going this variant, that means this is not Weakness Policy. This is something like Life Orb, you know, just dealing a ton of damage right away. No need to click Brick Break. The Ninetales variant has fallen off a little bit, so you know it's safe to just swap the sets here and just go with Life Orb here. You already know what you're getting with Chi-Yu here, especially with Snarl, you know, just dealing huge damage and then, you know, neutralizing special attackers from dealing damage to the Ursaluna, because your special defense isn't all that great. And then at the same time, you're a special attacker, so you're going to be doing more damage next to Chi-Yu. Dusclops is bulky and annoying. You know, Will-O-Wisp and then Pain Split, healing everything is, of course, very annoying. And then Pain Splitting your own mons if your Dusclops has taken too much damage. That's going to be good as well. The Ogerpon here would follow me, redirection support. That's going to help the Ursaluna and the Chiyu, against stuff like Urshifu, because Urshifu does relatively well against both of these. All right, and then, Chiyu Fluttermane. That's another lead. You have to respect that. That's a ton of special attack pressure. We've known this combination since Regulation C. And then, I can't picture too many Trick Room users without a Fake Out user, especially the Iron Hands. One of the best Pokemon, if not the best Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet competitively, with that Fake Out pressure and those hard-hitting moves like Drain Punch and Wild Charge. Okay, that's going to be good for you as well. So lots of different ways that they can play Dusclops Ursaluna, and this is why the archetype has been successful. So just be aware in terms of how you deal with it. If you got your own Urshifu, that's great. You just have to have a way to deal with this Ogerpon here. So maybe, a strong flying type is the way to go. And then at the same time, if you can pressure the Ursaluna with that Urshifu that you're going to have, that's going to be good. You just got to get rid of this guy first, and then you can get to the Ursaluna. Alright, so we will talk about Dondozo because I do expect to see some Dondozo play, but you might see this variant. This is the Salamence Dondozo variant without Tatsugiri. And the way it works is this Dondozo is a little bit more supportive with Wave Crash, Heavy Slam, and Yawn, especially Yawn here. And here's the concept. Like, we already know what we're getting with Salamence. We talked about it already. We already know what we're getting with Urshifu. This is the dark one. And then you have, Rillaboom and Fluttermane over here. Very standard Pokemon. But now, what's the deal with Dondozo and Heatran? So the idea here is if you click Magma Storm, right? You trap them in, and then you combo that with Sleep, aka Yawn. The only way to reset that is to switch out, but you can't do that if you're under Magma Storm. So now you're forced to stay in, and you're forced to go to sleep, and now everything is just going to be dealing damage, and then at the same time, you don't get to play the game because of this Yawn and Magma Storm idea, right? And Dondozo is very bulky, right? Especially with Leftovers, Oblivious, it's going to be hard to remove, okay? And this way, it can still keep going for Yawns. So just be aware of that. It's not really meant to deal damage. Most of the damage is going to be done by Urshifu, Fluttermane, and sometimes the Rillaboom. The Dondozo Heatran is just meant to support, chip things down, put things to sleep, so this way your other Pokemon could come in and finish the job. Alright, so just be aware. The other Dondozo variant is the more aggressive variation with Dondozo Tatsugiri, with Earthquake, Order Up, and Wave Crash, along with Leftovers here. So this is going to be the harder hitting Dondozo because it's being powered up by the Omni Boost from Tatsugiri. And then from here, Dozo Glimmora is a thing, has been a thing since Regulation E. Just the passive poison damage that this Glimmora is dealing is very punishing. And then Dondozo doesn't have to do a whole lot to clean up in the end game. Then at the same time, you got Fake Out pressure with your Iron Hands, and then the patented duo of Dragonite, Chien-Pao, just having the priority boys here. We call this almost a 2-2-2 Dozo team, just because you have pairs here with Dondozo Tatsugiri, Dragonite, Chien-Pao. Sometimes you'll see Fluttermane and Chiyu over here as ways of rounding out that 2-2-2 idea. But again, it's very, very strong. You just need something for it. Dondozo is easy to stall. You have a lot of tools at this point, since the game has been released, to be able to deal with it. That's why it hasn't really won super big. It's done well. It's that guy that always makes the playoffs but never wins the championship, right? Because he's just missing a couple tools here and there. But Dondozo has had good success in Scarlet and Violet. All right, and that's not going to be changing anytime soon. The power creep has held it down a little bit, but Dondozo always finds its way back, just because of the partners. We mentioned it briefly before, when discussing another team, but you will see some Ninetales variants, right? So, of course, the way they like to play is they like to set up the Aurora Veil, hide behind the Aurora Veil, hide behind the damage mitigation, and just deal damage right back, with their setup mons. Stuff like Gholdengo, Nasty Plot is going to be doing a lot of damage. Sometimes you'll see Swords Dance over here on the Ogerpon, but this time you'll see Redirection to be able to set Nasty Plot. This is a support Rory move with Tailwind and Breaking Swipe. Arcanine is going to be doing good damage here, but really it's just meant to support Gholdengo on this kind of team. Screens, Intimidate, Fake Out pressure, Redirection, everything Gholdengo needs to stay alive and set up this Nasty Plot and go for that big hitting Make It Rain is the way to go. Ninetales, again, you're going to get speed control as well because you have Icy Wind, and Ninetales in the snow becomes a little bit difficult to remove. So if you got, Sunny Day Tornadus, if you got Rain Dance Tornadus, that's one way to really help you against Ninetales and force them to switch out to try and reset weather. And then by doing that, you might force them out of position, potentially, right? So if you have your own way of changing weather, that's going to be good, against these Ninetales teams. And then after that, You already know what you're getting with Roy Moon, Arcanine, and Gholdengo, and Rillaboom as well, right? Patented Fire, Dragon Fairy Steel Core, and then Arcanine, again, behind screens, just doing so much damage, you know, and you can't even kill it, so have fun with that. All right, lastly here, you know, I do expect some players to pick up on, you know, Paul Ruiz's team, you know, the Volcarona Sinistcha idea. So the way it works, of course, you know, if you've seen our team, you know, with Keanu, when we built Volcarona along with Kingambit, that one was a screens variant. This one, there's no screens here, but you still are able to support the Volcarona, supporting it by, you know, letting it get off a Quiver Dance. I shouldn't say let it, but, you know, enabling it to get off Quiver Dances. And then from there, the occasional Flamethrowers and Giga Drains, just recovery damage over time, right? Then at the same time, you have the Sinistcha over here, you know, which can give you redirection support with Rage Powder, and then allow the Volcarona to be able to set up here, you know, and then just considering things that Volcarona is weak to, something like Urshifu, for example, the Sinistcha can redirect the Urshifu attacks. And then from there, you know, it's going to take chip damage, and then you just click Giga Drain and the Urshifu is dead, right? After that, you have the occasional burn chance with Machagacha. You even have Trick Room here, which is good for your Iron Hands and Kingambit. It's also really good against, you know, Tailwind teams that want to be going for that. But good recovery for Volcarona with Sinistcha. And then at the same time here, you also have Kingambit, Swords Dance. So, you know, Kingambit being weak to fighting type attacks. So if you redirect with the Rage Powder, the fighting type attack is going to go into the Ghost. And then, of course, that does no damage, right? So Sinistcha can support the Volcarona. It can also support the Kingambit here, depending on the matchup. And then Iron Hands, Landers, you already know what these guys do. Chien-Pao makes Kingambit, Iron Hands, and Landers do more damage, of course. So really, really cool idea from Paul Ruiz, and he did very, very well with it recently. So, and some people have picked it up and have done well at Stuttgart with it. So, and then after that, even some online tours, I've seen people do well with this team. So I do expect to see some people use this. Volcarona is a good mod. You just have to watch out for Heatran, because Heatran walls the Volcarona, but this is also why you have stuff like Iron Hands and Landers and even the Kingambit to an extent, right? Alright, that's going to do it, folks. So hopefully this video provided you with good insight and information, and it just helps you prepare, you know, for upcoming San Antonio, you know. And again, at the end of the day, go there, have some fun, get some experience, especially if it's your first region of the series, right? The last one of regulationE. Go have some fun, and hopefully you know what to expect now, or at least what to better expect going into that regional. All right, enjoy the DLC for those that are playing it, of course. If your regulationE is done and you're ready to, you know, get on the get-go with regulationF starting today, feel free to do that, of course. All the more power to you guys. All right, we'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out, and have a good one.